What's up, guys? Welcome back. In the last video, we built this rocket stove that has a detachable built-in heat exchanger. This one's all black because I've been testing it out. I highly recommend you go watch that video and subscribe. It heats the water in the portable shower really fast. Really happy with the way this came out. But the thing that came up in the comment section the most by far was the fact that I didn't really need a 12-volt pump to heat up the water in the portable shower. I could use a process called thermosiphoning. So that's what this video is about. I didn't really know what a thermosiphon was before you guys mentioned it in the comments. So we're going to test out both active and passive heat exchange here. We're going to see what works, what doesn't, see which one works better for with this particular setup. So I hope you guys join me while we do these tests. I really like learning this way, just kind of messing around to find out. So we're going to take the stove out back. We're going to start with active heat exchange using the 12-volt pump, and we're really going to see how quickly we can heat this water up. And then once we do that test, we'll switch over to passive. So yeah, let's get to it. Forgive my crude drawing, but the way this thermosiphon works, we have a reservoir plumbed into a heat exchanger. That cool water makes its way to the bottom. It starts to heat up. The water becomes less dense. It starts to expand. It just naturally finds its way to the top of the reservoir. The cooler, more dense water falls to the bottom and continues the process. So instead of a pump just pushing the water through the heat exchanger and back to the reservoir, the water just slowly heats up and makes its way back to the reservoir, creating a cycle. So yeah, really cool, really simple process. Let's get this test started. All right, we got everything set up to test active heat exchange. We're going to be borrowing the 12-volt pump from our portable shower. We're going to be pumping the water to the top again and then back out the bottom into the bucket. We're going to see how quickly we can heat up this water from, I think we're starting off about 75 degrees, and we'll see where we are at 100 degrees, how long it takes. We might go above that, we'll just see. But the only thing I'm going to do differently from this test, the last test, is I'm really going to try to keep the rocket stove as hot as possible. And then once we have this information, we can switch over, replumb it to passive heat exchange and see how well that works. All right, rocket stove is lit. I'm gonna start the timer. All right, pump is going. Starting off at 71 degrees. One thing I think is really interesting that I forgot to show in the first video is how much condensation this produces at first. It does go away eventually, but you'll hear water dropping in there. It's just from the coil creating condensation. All right, about 6 minutes in, about 10 degrees in 5 minutes. Not bad. One thing I think is really cool is that I can touch these brass fittings while the pump's on. It's keeping them cool. They're warm, but they're not hot enough to burn me. That's one thing I'm curious about when I switch to passive, is this, since the water's not going to be pumping through there so fast, if those fittings will get just super hot. All right, we're at 101 degrees. Wasn't paying attention to it. 17 minutes, 102. We'll keep it going. We'll see how hot this thing gets. All right, so the battery just died just shy of 30 minutes. And we got it up to 118 degrees. I'm sure it could go higher if I had another battery and if we left the rocket stove going longer, but there's really no point in that. But yeah, 30 minutes run time, 118 degrees, it's not bad. All right, so now that we have that information, let's plumb this up passive and see how it does. All right, we have the stove switched over to passive heat exchange. We're not using the pump anymore. This is what we have. Got the reservoir off to the side, and we just have it in a loop here. Stove is nice and cold. Our water is starting off at 64 degrees. About to get it lit. Let's see how she does. All right, we got the stove going, but before I could even start the timer, you can see the water is boiling inside the lines. I really don't think this is how passive heat exchange is supposed to work. I don't think this is supposed to be boiling inside the lines. Seems kind of sketchy. Sounds like an angry coffee maker. It is moving the water. It just seems quite violent. And the water is heating up. I don't have the bucket completely full. I wanted to see how well we can see the water move, but I don't think this is it. I think I need to cool it down. I'm gonna try to remove some fuel. All right, I think I'm gonna pause this test right here. I just don't think it should be boiling inside the lines like that. It does seem kind of sketchy. I posted in a Rocket Stove Facebook group to get some immediate feedback on how we could make this setup better. It was kind of funny, the first 5 comments were like, oh, it just needs a pump. And I'm like, I know. One guy mentioned that the reservoir needs to be higher to add water pressure, so we might try that. Another guy says we need a check valve at the bottom. The bottom line is kicking back. It's kind of running in reverse sometimes when it's really boiling, so I could see how that could work. But I think if we keep it from boiling, we might not need a check valve. Most of the other comments are just mentioning how I need to keep the stove way cooler. So we're gonna make some changes to this setup and we'll come back and try this test again. All right guys, it's been a couple days. I have learned a lot about thermosiphoning since our last little test that we ran. Got a completely new setup that I think is gonna work a lot better. So let me show you what we got. All right, for starters, we have the reservoir up a lot higher, hopefully to give it some water pressure and help keep the water moving in the lines. I'm gonna keep the stove a lot cooler. You're not gonna be able to see the flames coming out the top, I don't think. I'm not gonna pack it full of fuel. I'm gonna keep it as low as possible just to keep that water from boiling inside the lines. I didn't end up putting a check valve last time the water was shooting back in the bottom line, but I think as long as we keep it from boiling, we're not gonna need a check valve. One thing I wasn't sure about is if the return, the hot line should be just above it or should it be plumbed in next to the cold. But all the diagrams I've seen, looks like the return is above it. So we're gonna run with that, see how that works. So we're gonna get the stove lit and I think this is gonna work a lot better. All right, we just got it lit. Let me get the timer started. We're starting off at 65 degrees. A little cooler today. So yeah, let's see what happens. Check it out. You can see the water movement right there at the surface where it's heating up the water and pushing out. I am going to try to keep this cooler than I did before. I'm going to try, I don't want the water to boil. So I'm going to try to pull some of it out a little bit if possible. Maybe cut off the airflow a little bit. Maybe run less fuel. We'll see. We'll see if I can run it a little bit cooler than last time. You can definitely see the siphoning action. It's moving the water. I'm not sure if you can see that on camera very well. Some bubbles are coming out, but there it is. There's the water movement right there. Really flowing right there. That is awesome. Uh-oh. I think we're starting to boil a little bit. Well, it's already warm on the surface, much cooler at the bottom. The top layer of water is much warmer. Let's test the temperature. So the top of the water is already 116 degrees, but if you get right past the top layer, it cools off really quickly. And the bottom water is very cold. And right at the surface, it's warm, and that's what the thermometer is catching. So it will take a while to heat up all the water, and we don't even have a full bucket yet, but it is working. All right, we're at a full 5 gallons now. I'm gonna reset my timer, and I'm gonna check it every 5 minutes and see how quickly we can get this heated up. Reset that. Start. So now it's all cooled down. We'll really get a little better test of how fast we can heat that water up. All right, so we're right at 6 minutes. Our temperature is 75 degrees, so it is coming up. The lines are nice and warm. Bottom one's still cold. Barely running the fire to keep it from boiling. So the surface is nice and warm, but if I get past the surface, the temperature drops pretty quickly. You can definitely feel very hot water coming out of the top. That's awesome. All right, we're 20 minutes in, getting a lot more steam. So we're at 92 degrees, not bad. Still going really well. If I drop my hand all the way to the bottom is still like 60 degrees, the very, very bottom. And as I come up, it warms up pretty quickly, and the surface is where the hottest 90-degree water is. But that is awesome. Could probably use to stir it up and get some of that warm water back down there. With this setup, there's no real condensation that can build up since the water warms up more slowly. So it doesn't drip like it does with the pump. All right, guys, we're at 47 minutes in. Let's check our temp. Right at 100 degrees. That is awesome. Let's feel the water right here at the top is nice and warm. Still plenty warm midway. The very bottom, it's still slightly cool. It's kind of cool to feel the different layers of heat as it go from top to bottom. That's the difference between the thermal siphoning and the 12-volt pump. Is the pump is pumping so fast it's keeping it heated more evenly as it churns the water. And this one you can feel the different layers of heat. I want to try to measure the temperature of the two lines. 150 degrees on the top one. Let's see if it might be hitting the ground. 82, 85 for that bottom one. So it's still a little bit cooler down here at the bottom. We're 52 minutes in. Our temperature is at 113 degrees, 115, 17. That is awesome. So we have proven that it works. I do think the heat exchanger will last longer running the pump because it keeps everything cooler. I'm able to heat up my water faster with the pump because I can keep the temperature higher in the stove, but the coil is cooler. So I am going to continue running it that way just because that's how I designed it. But if you do have an off-grid setup, this does work. We've proven that it works, and it works a lot better than I expected. This is awesome. This has been a really fun test. I hope y'all have enjoyed this as much as I have. All right, y'all were right. You technically don't have to use a 12-volt pump to heat up your water. We got the water over 120 degrees in about an hour. It was definitely a slower process. You definitely have to tend to your heat. You kind of really have to watch that to keep it from boiling. I will continue to use the 12-volt setup because it just works so much better with this portable shower. Heats the water a lot quicker, and I think that the heat exchanger will last a lot longer. But yeah, this has been a really fun test, really fun project. I didn't really know anything about thermal siphoning before this, and I've learned a ton. So I want to thank you guys for bringing that one up. I hope this has been insightful for you guys. Be sure to like on this video, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video.